Where your heart is anchored determines what consumes your mind. So what does that mean? Well, we're going through this series on anxiety, and so specifically through Psalm 16. And Psalm 16 is David and his kind of cry for help, his cry for reliance on God, and how that relates to anxiety. So we've done in the previous episodes verse 1 and verse 2, and now we're on verse 3. So I'm going to read verse 1 and 2 just to give some context. So, keep me safe, my God, for in you I take refuge. So this is a cry for help, which is keep me safe. That's like, help me, God, for in you I take refuge. That's putting God at his rightful place in all your fears and anxieties below that, and finding refuge and protection in God. And then it says, I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. Apart from you I have no good thing. So again, this is reorienting your anxieties with the Lord, and having the Lord at the top and your anxieties below that. Saying that you are my Lord. Apart from you, I have no good thing. So that part of the verse is kind of relating a ton to what we're going over today in verse 3, which is, apart from you, I have no good thing. And so that's putting God as a supreme treasure, that all of our good that we have derives from our relationship with Christ, and not our anxiety, not our fears, not our materialistic things. And so this week we're on verse 3, which says, I say of the holy people who are in the land, they are the noble ones in whom is all my delight. So first, I say, that's David. So this is David speaking, saying, I find all my delight in all the people of God, is what this is saying. The holy people, your version might say saints, are the people of God. People who find God as their Lord, call him Lord, and find all their satisfaction in him. David is saying he finds all his delight. He finds all his delight in them. And so my first question is why? Why does David find all his delight in the people of God? And I was like, and my second question was, then how does this relate to anxiety at all? And so that was kind of a cool thing, which is the previous verse, which says, apart from you I have no good thing, and you are my Lord. That's putting God as his supreme treasure in his life. And so then now on verse 3 is showing, like, it's like proof of that orientation of his heart, which is like, of course he's gonna find delight in all of God's people, because his values are aligned with what God values. And so God finds delight in all the people of God. And if God is David's supreme treasure, of course he's also gonna find delight in all the people of God. And so how does that relate to us? You're like, okay, that's cool, David does that, whatever. But how it relates to us is whenever we're dealing with anxiety, whether we're struggling with our relationships with other people, struggling to fit in, struggling to like in social circumstances, or even just struggling with like finances or something like that, and our anxiety is tied up in that, is that can be a reflection of how our heart is oriented. It's not having God as our supreme treasure, not finding all our delight in God. And so a way to check your heart on that is, are you finding delight in God's people? Like, is that your supreme, if God is your supreme treasure, you will find delight in God's people. And so that's kind of just a good heart check to know, is all my treasures actually based on God and supremacy on God? So instead of David finding delight in what the world delights in and having his anxiety tied up in that, he finds delight in what God finds delight in, which is the people of God. And so as you're going through life, and this is another reason that you should be in church, is because you're with God's people, and you should find enjoyment in that and peace in that, instead of anxiety about the things the world wants you to have anxiety about. I just thought that was a cool verse. And at first I was like, I don't even know how this applies to anxiety at all. But through reading it, it was revealed that, like, no, this relates to anxiety because it reveals what your heart treasures. If your heart's treasuring worldly things, of course you're going to have anxiety and fear about it. But if you're treasuring what God treasures, which is finding delight in his people and living for his glory, you're going to have like max joy, max peace, max satisfaction. In a way, like a kind of like a test in that is, are you finding delight in God's people? And so that's it for this week's episode, which is verse 3. And next week we'll be at verse 4. Thank you.